tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, AfterBuzzers! How you guys doing? My name is Jon Manganello, and this is the AFTERBUZZ TV After Show for American Crime, Episode 2, Season 1. We loved this episode, and we are so excited to talk about it. Make sure you check us out at youtube.com/AfterBuzzTV, and also subscribe to our iTunes channel, as well as checking us out on SoundCloud. Then I think we've covered all the bases.
I think we got it all.
You're figuring it out? I'm figuring it out slowly as I go.
Yeah.
Like I said, my name's Jon Manganello. You can follow me at Twitter and at Instagram at Johnny Mangs.
Hello. My name is Lindsay Douglas. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well at Doug Ventures.
What's going on, guys? My name is Nicholas Grava, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Nicholas Grava.
Now, folks, we are so excited to be hosting this AfterBuzz show. We love American Crime, and it's been wonderful so far. It's been a great season. But there is something we want to address before we continue with this season. We have been looking at all of your comments on Twitter, on our YouTube channel, and we hear you guys, and we try to respond to as many as possible. And this week, we have been getting a lot of comments about our panel. A lot of you have been really positive about us, and we're very happy about that. Many of you have been saying that this panel is not necessarily representative of more than just some white youngsters, and it's true.
To put it lightly.
We recognize that, and there's a couple things we want to say about that. First of all, we agree. We are all white, and we are talking about a show that deals with many different types of people, not just white people. And we know that that might seem problematic, and we want to make sure that we are covering everything in a fair, representative way. So that's the first thing. We hear you and we agree with you. Second of all, we discussed how we have an empty chair. There could be someone next to me, and hopefully there will be in the coming weeks. We are open to it. We are not shutting down anybody's voices or anybody's opinions. Third of all, we want to hear from you. You guys really diversify the show, and we want to hear from everybody around the United States and around the world, and we think your opinions are so valuable. Other than that, we can't do much about who we are, where we come from, but we can try to be as inclusive as possible, and we hope we are doing just that. Anything else to add to that, you guys?
Yeah, so with that being said, just remember to use our official hashtag for the show, which is ABTV American Crime, because we want to keep the conversation flowing, and we love so much that you guys are responding to some of the things we have to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining. I am logged in here on the chat roll so I can see what you guys are saying, and if you guys have any questions of anything about the show, the episode, or to us, feel free to type it in there, and we will reach out to you guys and comment back.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so please keep those tweets coming.
Keep them coming all night.
We'll keep saying it because
here.
we want to see them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you guys. So now that we've taken care of the brass tacks, let's get down to business. I've used that phrase once in my life, and that was the first and last time I'll ever use it.
I didn't
hate it.
That was great.
Thanks, guys.
You
You're
seem so official and
really?
Oh yes, hello.
Hey guys.
Brass tacks.
No, but we got to talk about the show and what happened.
Gosh, so much happened.
So much. I feel like that's going to be a reoccurring theme with the show.
I'd say so.
Okay,
It was.
so we wanted to do a quick recap of what happened. Just to recap before we go into our opinions and our predictions and all of that fun stuff. So let's talk first about the people involved in the murder, okay?
Yes.
You guys
In
wanna
the actual crime.
in the actual crime that we're dealing with on American Crime. So let's talk about Hector first, because he is charged with first-degree murder. This character is still a mystery to me. We don't know much about him, and he's pretty quiet.
Yeah, he is quiet, and I think his environment in itself is making him like
Are you talking about Hector or Carlos?
Well, Carlos was charged with...
They're both charged with murder? No, Carlos is the one charged. Hector's the guy in the wheelchair who was shot.
Right.
Yes.
That's who we're talking about now.
Oh. See, okay, I'm glad we're breaking this down. You're right. I was thinking the guy in the...
You were thinking Hector.
Yes.
That's Hector.
But
yes.
I was wrong about what I said he did. He is not charged with first-degree murder.
But he was just like an accomplice.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He's with Tony with the same charges, correct? Because Tony was also under evaluation of possibly being an accessory also.
I believe they're both accessories.
Yeah.
Right, so it is Carter who is...
Carlos.
Carter.
Guys, if you guys watch the show, you can clearly tell there's a lot of characters, a lot of names
We are still getting used to all of it. There's a lot going on. It's okay.
Carter and Aubrey are together.
I thought his name was Carlos.
It's Carter.
Then I am so wrong.
No, it's okay. This comes with the territory of a show where there's so many characters.
There's a lot of characters. And half the time we're watching it and we are like, wait, who is this one again? What was his name? Remind me of his name?
Yeah.
Well, I think because
Carter,
and it's sort of
it sounds similar to
it's
Carlos.
accurate to life in the fact that there's a lot of people, a lot of connections, a lot of perspectives, and I think that's why it can be a little bit intimidating, especially when we're trying to get it all together. So I'm going to bring up IMDb here with all the characters so I can help everybody out.
Yes, and he is charged with first-degree murder.
And he was just staring at Aubrey the entire time he was being charged, which I thought, that caught my attention, obviously, right away, but... it's like he's not even aware of what's going on. I feel I don't know.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, when you see him in the courtroom,
or he's just so in love that he just does not care, or he's also on drugs. But I don't know if that's playing into it.
I think with both Carter and with Aubrey, there's something there. Do we have a name?
No, we don't. Well, no. They're talking in the chat roll, so we have a lot of stuff. But keep going, and then I'll bring it into here.
We see Carter and Aubrey often sort of not in the same world as everybody else.
No,
right?
That is for sure.
They're just in love, and there's this whole horrible thing going on around them. And you're right; they're often thinking about each other.
Yeah. No, they absolutely are. And like her whole world after getting out on parole was just about getting to see him again.
Yeah, were you guys surprised by that? By the first thing that she did was go up and try to see him again?
I wasn't surprised by that. She is so in love with him and the way that they were staring, and her world is not...
I think they are each other's world, actually, that you bring that up, and I think that's why we see her when she leaves. She's basically lost.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about how they have that vision board or whatever we want to call it on their apartment wall of other interracial couples that they've ripped out of magazines. Pictures of happy, perfect, unhuman because they're so perfect couples, and they strive to be that, but they aren't that. In fact, they're the opposite of that.
And it's almost like they haven't acknowledged the complications and the seriousness of their situation. They don't. Agree. He doesn't. I don't think that they realize that he could get charged.
Carter
Nix. You guys Carter Nix. Yeah. Carter Nix.
Carter Nix.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody at home, we're all on board now. Carter.
Yeah.
You guys, it's Carter.
Hey, you got to give us a break. It's episode 2, and I think we're actually doing pretty well. Yeah, there are so many characters.
There are a lot of characters. Yeah.
I met you 2 last week, and I can barely remember your names. No,
I actually didn't know his name. I called him something. I called you Joe when I first met you.
Oh, well, then this is perfect.
So I guess I'm just bad with names. It's all right.
Total side note. Did you read Mindy Kaling's book?
I did, yes.
She says there's no such thing as being bad with someone with names. You're just a jerk. No, you're not a jerk. You're wonderful.
He just called me a jerk.
They're getting so offensive on the panel. Okay, so now, guys, back to the show that we're here to review. If y'all forgot,
that's the Mindy Project.
Oh, wrong show, man. Sorry.
Side note.
American Crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Got it.
So, were you guys surprised? Okay, well, actually, I want to talk a little bit about Tony in his setting that he's in. So he's in a little bit of a different setup.
Oh, my goodness.
We're wondering if he's going to be charged as an adult or not.
My heart breaks every time I see his scene. He is just he doesn't deserve to be there. He's wrongfully there.
Out of the 3 that are being charged, I just empathize and I'm more worried about him. It might just be an age thing where that's what I'm relating to, and that's what I see, and I see the fear. The other 2 kind of, I feel like, have a tough outer shell that they can I don't want to say handle, but they can deal with it. Him, I think, even like he was getting sort of verbally harassed and abused, and he was talking to somebody in the jail, and they basically said, "Listen, if they're not hitting you or something, there's nothing I can do." And that was kind of scary. That was really scary to me to hear, because when anything that there's a bigger power and you're out of control, even him and his father's out. His father said, "What can I do to get him out?" His sister wants, and there's nothing they can do. The system is in control. That's terrifying.
Yes. You're absolutely right. And it is. It's like, unless he is being physically assaulted, he is out of luck. No one's going to come save him.
I feel sad just for his character and his situation, just because he was trying to do the right thing, and it completely got him in this unfair situation. Like, it was almost like it was kind of an injustice in a way, because he's there trying to help out, and obviously he was doing kind of something sketchy, but it wasn't necessarily illegal. Was it illegal?
I'm not sure that he necessarily is trying to do the right thing. I think he's actually trying to act out. His dad keeps him. Yeah, remember?
He said.
Remember when he was being questioned? Yes, I think we're going to say the same thing. Go ahead. No, when he was being questioned, his dad said, or he is talking to the officer or the detective, saying, "Oh, my dad wants me to be perfect. We can't be just another, basically he's saying my dad doesn't want me to be another stereotype."
Yeah,
what were you going to say?
I was going to say that exact thing, and I think, now, like he said, the detective said to him, they said, "Well, why didn't you tell your father?" And he said, "Well, I couldn't." And I think that's a big part of a theme of parenting, I think, comes up here with all the parents across the board of the show, of what is the level of like expectation compared to does that help? So his father having such high expectations for him all the time, and him knowing that, does that have a negative effect on his relationship and how he can confess? Because maybe if he could have went to his father with this, his father would have advised him differently and would have helped him out, but not in such a judgmental way.
He couldn't tell his dad. He said, "I couldn't tell my dad."
So Alonzo has great intentions, but has a negative outcome.
It's too much.
So where's the line of
he never drew the line, so he's now in this.
The chat roll commented on the extra coaster. Thank you for taking that out of the way. Yes, they did.
I took the coaster away, you guys. Thank you. I think that if his dad was not so strict, then maybe he would have a more open relationship with his dad, and maybe his dad would actually steer him clear, as opposed to scaring him straight.
And I think that happens with a lot of parents. I know personally, my parents were very strict at a certain point in my life, and I did act out because of that in ways that I shouldn't have, So I definitely can relate to that in a way, in a small way.
Those people who go to college, the people whose parents were like cool with the kids and like you can go out with your friends, just be safe, blah blah blah. They're the people who are cool in college. The people who are maniacs in college are the ones who have the strictest parents, and they're experiencing this newfound freedom. I mean, we all know that girl or that guy who was like passed out at the frat party, and it's like, your parents
they're the one
too
that
strict.
couldn't have soda after 9 or some crazy rules,
Exactly.
And I think that is true with even with Russ and Barb saying, I don't care what the detective said. They're seen in the parking garage. I don't care what he said. Basically saying my son wouldn't have done it. I don't care.
It's naive, even with Gwen's parents. They're so naive.
Showing the picture, she showed the picture to her husband, and she said, remember, this is your daughter. Your daughter's sitting there. She didn't want to hear the other stuff.
We're not parents, so I can't relate to being, if I feel this intense love for my child, but it's just they're acting so naive, like as if they're just perfect human beings, never going to make a mistake, and they don't even want to acknowledge that they may have been living different lifestyles than they ever thought.
We're going to talk more about this later in the show, because we have a whole theory about stereotypes and the characters trying to break stereotypes. For now, let's continue with the recap. I think this is great, but let's shelf it for a second.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about so we talked about Tony, we talked about Carter, and we talked about Hector.
Yes,
Hector.
I'm saying all these names.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you guys.
You got it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So now let's talk about Barb and Russ. They are prominent characters. They're really important to the plot and to the story, as well as the overarching themes of the show. And I think they are falling right into the same traps that all these other characters are. We start this episode with Russ going to one of Matt's friends' houses and saying, hey, did Matt ever experiment with drugs? Because at the end of the first episode, we found out that there were drugs involved in Matt's life in some capacity. And what do you guys think of that?
You know, I was on the same page as Russ in the way of I don't think that him going to the friend is crossing a line or spreading lies like Barb basically framed it to him as being. When she said, why would you go and spread those same lies about our son? I think, listen, he wants to know. He wants to get to the bottom of it. And just because, is it betrayal of his son to consider it? No, I think it's naive not to. So I'm happy he did it, and I'm happy he went. And I think the friend was shady. I think the friend could have said more. He knows more. He said, "Oh, you know, we there a little bit of grass and a drink on a Friday."
You know what I noticed is they didn't even show his face. The friend's face.
Oh, interesting. I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice that either.
He was looking down, and then it was his back, and then it was more on Russ's face. So his face was never shown, which I just kind of was like, oh, that's interesting.
This is not just some old TV show. There is some interesting stuff going on.
I feel like you need to pay attention to every little single thing.
So Tanny in the chat roll is saying that Tony's only 15 or 16 years old, and how often do people that age make mistakes? He shouldn't have to be dealing with something this serious just for wanting to make a little bit of money. And I think that is a good point to bring up, and it kind of, as we've talked about, was he pushed into a corner the way they were questioning him in the beginning? And I think we'll touch upon that later, but I think that's a great point to bring up, Tanny, and we're gonna go over that.
Yeah.
I also think that. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. I know we touched on this last week, how Barb seems to be holding on to the way that Russ treated her in her past.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel that because of that, he anything that he says, she doesn't. It's like not validated, and she doesn't want to hear anything, even though he is speaking a lot of truth and he's trying to be reasonable and get to the bottom of it. It's just she's so hurt from the past that she's not even ready to listen. She doesn't have the ears to listen to him.
Of course, yeah, and there is a lot of past history that's really being brought up and regurgitated into this conversation. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think Barb has some beef with Russ, and it's maybe clouding her vision right now, and probably rightfully so. She's been hurt by him before, and why would she open herself up to be hurt by him again?
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with exactly what you guys are saying, but why is Barb not at all basically, I think it would be connected to her being stubborn, but why is she not wondering? Do you think she is wondering, it's just not being about the drugs? Because Russ is about to break into their house, the crime scene itself, I assume, to find out if there's drugs. Where are they? Where were these? Or were they planted? Where was he thinking?
I assume that.
And she does not bring it up. She doesn't even care. She's not thinking about it. So is that a front? Yeah. Is Barb a walking front?
I would say no, just because of the last scene. Because she was so dead set on being an advocate for him and not saying that they're trying to put him down and this and that. So I don't know if she believes it at all.
You think she really doesn't believe? I think that could be true.
Maybe.
I think she does believe there's something going on.
You do,
but I think she doesn't care. I think that in her mind, all of that extra stuff is distracting. The problem is my son was murdered.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he is Mother Teresa or if he is a horrible human being. He was murdered. So why are we talking about these details, which to us as viewers are important, but to a mother who's suffering a loss?
You know what?
That's a very good point. You kind of nailed that one.
First, I got everybody's name right after some trial and error, and then I made a good point.
Let's not get ahead of things here.
You guys, my head is growing by the minute.
No, I do think that is a really good point, because I never considered that she. Yeah, I don't know. That actually makes you want to go back and revisit it, because it's not important. In the specific scenario that they're in, whether he was a drug dealer or not, he was murdered. Who was he murdered by? That's her goal.
Right. And I think it is important to the story. I think to Barb, it isn't important.
Yeah.
I think to most people, it would be important. It would offer motive. It would set up the scenario. Maybe it provides some alibis or something like that. But to Barb, no, we don't care.
And she's still so tough. we still haven't really seen, I mean, towards the end we saw a little bit of her soft side, but everything has just been, no, he's not moving there. Nope, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm not talking to you. Nope, I want a different detective.
I think she's a product of her environment, and I think it shows 100%.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the episode when she said, I've never said this before, I need help. I think that was our first breakthrough of seeing she's not so tough anymore.
Yeah,
well, she
the
still
soft
is
side.
tough, but that is her side of her, like, breaking it down a little. And I thought it was pretty
Vulnerable.
beautiful to see that, to see her go out and ask. And it made me relate to her on a human level more than I have thus far in the
Absolutely.
show.
Felicity Huffman does a great job of playing a strong, empowered woman.
Yes.
And this role is really interesting because her mask is a strong woman, but I think there's some insecurity behind that. A lot of insecurity behind
I'm
that mask.
sure, yeah.
Okay, so we talked about Russ and Barb. I would like to go now to Gwen's parents.
These people. I'm lost with them. I'm going to be
I know,
honest.
I don't know.
I really am so lost
Like to
with
figure them out.
Why do you say that?
Because in the first episode, I, in my head, assumed that they had good intention. I thought they were all good, and I
Yeah.
almost villainized Russ and Barb in a way. I'm like, this is what they should be, this is what they shouldn't be. And in this episode, I'm just lost. I don't know what to think of them. I can't draw to a conclusion. I just want to see more and hear more from them. I think they bring up the point of they want Matt. Yes, Matt. They want Matt to be buried back where they're from, and they want him to be with Gwen, and they want to be together. And then Barb comes in and she's like, if you want to be together, come into the court and let's be together there. And they were like, well, we're praying. And she said, well, you can pray anywhere.
Well, we've seen Gwen's parents in church. Actually, I think at the beginning of this episode.
Yes.
And they've talked about praying both in this episode and the last episode. They're obviously dealing with this in a very different way than Barb is.
You bring up a very good point.
Barb is dealing with the paperwork. They are dealing with all of the spirituality behind this.
Well, people have different ways of,
Absolutely,
dealing with
coping.
things and coping. And, maybe I think that we're getting a sense of they come from a religious background, which actually we haven't seen it all yet in either episode until that moment, which was the beginning.
The opening.
The opening. So that, and they're not even really playing that up very much. It was more subtle, I think.
Yeah, it was very subtle.
It was
They
just
cut
very
from
quick.
Barb in a courtroom to them in the church. It
Yeah.
just shows where priorities lie. And I don't think there's any judgments attached to these scenarios that we're seeing, but I think that it's something to be noted.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Gwen's dad didn't want to discuss anything with the press when the journalist was asking, if Gwen's dad thought this was racially motivated. He said, "That's it. That's enough."
Okay, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because somewhere in here I said to take note of the questions the reporter was asking.
Yeah,
and
I noticed
thought
that.
about that because I think that is what forms a story. Just like as a detective, is what questions he's asking Tony in the beginning, he's going to get certain answers. And this reporter seemed like, to me, he was asking a lot of questions that would heighten the scenario of race
Absolutely.
involvement, whether right or wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing to bring up, and also something that's
Absolutely.
relevant in life today.
Yeah.
I think that's
He immediately went in for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how interesting was it when we found out that Gwen was not sexually assaulted by the murderer, or by who they think is the
by
murderer?
Carter.
I'm not surprised.
I was not.
Oh,
yeah.
you weren't?
I was not.
Were you surprised?
Absolutely.
Because once I heard about the drugs in episode 1, and I do believe there are drugs, and I do believe Matt was into some shady stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the father said, like her father said, listen, they're a real family. They're not perfect.
Right.
And I'm not surprised.
Right. But okay, maybe that
But the multiple.
that's
Yeah.
what surprised
Sure.
me.
The
Multiple sexual partners, and that it was consensual.
Yeah.
So they are not this perfect all-American apple pie eating family.
No,
Is
no.
anybody?
No, and I think that's what this show is proving.
Yes.
The whitest of the white people are not these saints that maybe characters like Barb, Russ, Gwen's parents want them to be.
Exactly. And that are normally portrayed, in television shows and movies and things like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on with Gwen's parents, a lot going on with Matt's parents, Russ and Barb. Let's talk about Aubrey a little bit more, because we saw a lot of Carter at the beginning of this episode, but then Aubrey kind of goes off on this field trip with herself.
That is just that's just heartbreaking. I think for anyone who knows someone or has like a relative that's a drug addict or has been a drug addict, I think that can resonate with a lot of people, because I think that just like the struggle of her like addictiveness, it's not about anything else but getting high.
Yeah.
You know, and she's just doing all of these things, but I also see the struggle for maybe trying to move on to the right thing, but it's just like it's hard. You know, and they're really capturing that, and it's pretty raw. And I think I actually really enjoy like watching this character grow and as her journey continues. You know.
Yeah.
So I have to be honest with you guys. Do I find it interesting? Yes, but I've yet to correlate what it has anything to do with the overall plot and the overall movement of it. I think we're spending a lot of time on it, so I'm excited. That's when, at this point, I'm sitting back saying, let's get to the meat of all of it, and then I'm also thinking, well, I'm sure next episode, whenever it comes, she's going to have a very strong line. Who did she call on the phone? She said the word uncle. Is it her uncle? I don't know. She went to a hotel. He gave her $3,000. Then she called him and told him where, after she showered and got all cleaned up, she called and told him where it was.
Was it him? We don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be a huge... She has a key to all of this.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think she's just a victim in this situation.
I don't think she's a victim, and I don't think she's an extra character. I think these are obviously really smart writers, so I'm waiting to see what they have to do with her.
Waiting to see when it comes out.
Yes. So we talked about Tony, this kid, and I want to say my gut wants to say this poor kid, but that's not necessarily fair. He might not be a poor kid. Maybe no one here is innocent, but it does seem like he's too young to be getting involved. Maybe not even too young, but too inexperienced.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe that is why I am like empathizing with him so much, because I just see this young kid who is kind of making some dumb decisions, but who hasn't at 15 or 16 years old, you know, and it's just wrong place. He's just, he just didn't really think about his actions and the implications of what he was doing.
Yeah, well, so
or am I giving him too much empathy? I don't know.
I don't know either. I do find his innocence really compelling. I do think that he does seem like his intentions were not as negative or as bad, basically, as they're framing it. But do you think so? He's being interviewed by his POI to see where he's going to be charged. Are you guys thinking that what he says, is it going to be turned? Is it going to be, accurate to if he talks about whether he thought it was a gang member at the beginning or didn't? Like, is this PIO to be trusted? Is he going to accurately portray his story and represent him, or is he going to draw his own conclusions? Because when he was sitting there, in a way, I'm like, I don't know if I want you to say anything right now, because I don't know how they're going to take your words. Yeah. And I think that's also another theme of it is, whether it's a reporter, whether it's a detective, whether it's how they're going to take the actual story that this person is given.
Absolutely. I don't know. I don't have much to say about that. I'm on the edge of my seat with this plot line. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen.
It could go so many different ways. There's just so many things going on.
I think. Let's talk about the scene with Alonzo in this house with the daughter.
Yes.
His daughter steps in and she says, "You basically." Did anyone have the quote that she said?
Yeah, she was. What was she saying?
You hate yourself. You wish you were white.
Yeah.
And in the way that they just left that, he did break down.
Because then, didn't she say, because then they'll like you more or something, or then she said something, she framed it in that way. And he clearly had an emotional reaction to this.
And she said, "You're worried you're just going to be a Mexican." Yeah. Like, as if that's... That's really loaded, because that's to say that being not white is problematic.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that this guy, Alonzo, has instilled in his parents that there's something innately wrong with being a stereotype. And probably there is something wrong with being a stereotype, but he takes it to extremes.
Yeah.
Did you notice that his house is painted red, white, and blue?
No, I didn't notice that.
No.
Near the end of near the end of the show, we see him sitting on his front stoop, and it is very clear that his house is painted 3 different colors: red, white, and blue. I mean, there's no denying that.
I think from the details that we've picked up, there's no coincidence in that.
Right. It reminds me of My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Do you remember the last scene where they zoom out and the house is painted like it as a Greek flag? It's like that. It's like this over the top, patriotic, here we are. This is who we are. And it's very clear that Alonzo wants to be an American.
Yeah, and
he is Mexican American. They did. I know they said that a couple times, and so he's very much holding on to the, to the American part. I think he's portraying based on his comments about gangs and tattoos and not wanting. I remember in the first episode he was like, I don't want those tattoos around here for the guys working at the shop,
that were dropping off
dropping off cars.
Well, now, like you said, what he is instilling into his kids. Tony, when he's also being interviewed, says it's not about being better, it's about being better than them. And I think that's another example of Alonzo's effect from his parenting styles to Tony, and how it is actually being distilled down to him, and how it is affecting Tony's every action. So, who do you put the blame? I don't know. Who do you put the blame? Well,
it's almost like he's in an identity crisis. I think he was trying to figure out who he was, and he wants to be this good person that gets straight A's in school, and this and that. But he also was messing with other things and doing things on the side. So I don't know.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. What's interesting to me is that, let's say his daughter is right, that Alonzo wants him and his family to be whiter, whatever that means. Their words, not ours. I believe that they don't know then what whiteness means. Look at the white people. Obviously, the white people involved in this show are no more innocent than anybody else.
No more perfect.
I think when they're saying it, how I take it is less on the reality of it and more on the societal and cultural views of it.
Yes.
Because like we said when we started off the show, you look at Russ and Barb, and you look at the marriage of Matt and Gwen, and we have expectations of it. Everybody does, and whether they say they do, whether negative or positive. And I think when she says you wish you were white or whatever she says, she's referring to you like you wish people would view you that way. And it's terrible that is a fact, and that is something that he clearly has had through his head because he had such an emotional response to it.
As a person who is a white person in this country, I don't. These types of discussions take me off guard sometimes because I never think like, this is the default. But for a character like Alonzo, we are the default. We have everything. This is how things should be. And anything that is different than whiteness is somehow worse. And that's really interesting for me. I never think about that. I never think about our race being superior in that way. And I think that maybe Jenny, is that her name? Alonzo's daughter?
Yeah, Jenny.
Is hurt by her father's
absolutely
idea that might be true.
Because I think she identifies with her true self, and I think she holds that. And seeing your father, who you look up to, try and identify or want to identify something else, that must kill you inside.
Yeah. She was just had it. It seemed as if she didn't have much respect for him, based on the reaction and. Just her comments and her just blatant disregard as she walks out the door,
Right.
So.
Okay, so I think we did a pretty in-depth recap of what happened in tonight's episode, as well as what each character is doing and has been doing over the past 2 episodes. Yes. Now let's talk about some of our general thoughts. I know, Nick, you wanted to talk
I'm excited to
about
talk
the editing style and the filming style of the show.
At first, I found it really distracting, and I'd love to know what you guys think, and you can type it in the chat roll here. I found it distracting, the way first of all, they're filming up close and personal.
Yes.
And I think for that reason, it's so that a usual scene, how it's filmed, and it will be 3 shots. They call it the master, which is from really far away. You can see almost full bodies, the whole situation, and then they cut into close-up and close-up, so 3 shots. Mostly in here, we'll get 3 shots, but we barely ever get a full-on master of a situation, of a conversation. So I'm sitting there thinking, why? The only reason I can think of is it feels so personal. I don't feel like I'm watching them. I feel like I'm in the conversation with them.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's not distracting anymore.
Really good point.
Yeah.
And on top of that, not only are we up close and personal, sometimes we'll get these quick shots, quick cutaways to, I don't know, another day, an hour before, a minute before.
Or like the picture flashes, or just
the picture flashes.
very
Or
and it makes
the
it
words
more-
are off they'll be having a conversation and I'm thinking, oh, is it skipping like right now? Do I have to change something?
'cause
But it's
someone
just,
else is talking.
I think it's also how our brains work. It's scattered,
Of course.
and whether the clip is a blank or what
Right.
they're perceiving. I think it's a lot about the perception, the reality, being into it. I think it's
Absolutely.
genius what they're doing.
I totally agree. I've never seen anything like this filming or editing style before. And if any of you at home have seen this and have opinions about it, I'd love to hear, because it's so unique to me.
It is.
It's unlike anything I've ever seen, especially on television.
Yeah.
In films, maybe we get that more
You usually
artistic.
feel like you're watching a picture and you're like, oh, but I'm like, oh man, like we're so close. It's so real. It's so gritty, and I can see the emotion just right on their face, and I feel it. I feel like what they're portraying, and I think that's what the whole idea of the show is. Like, it wants you to feel these emotions and get you thinking about all of these topics that are blatantly discussed, so openly in the show.
I also noticed that when Barb is talking about her son, you see these flashbacks to conversations, past conversations about Matt, or quick shots of him, like in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And in her mind, that's how she sees her son. And going back to Gwen's parents, we see the pictures. That's how they see. That's how they want to see her daughter. I'd be interested in seeing what kind of cuts we would see, what we would cut away to if somebody else was talking about Matt, if the murderer, if the rapists were talking about Gwen.
Maybe
I'd like
we
to see
will
what
see
they
that.
think about them. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yes, 100% yes
That's
to all of
interesting.
that. And I think whether meaningful or not, that's how life works. How do you view how do you view me? How does she view me? It's two different pictures that would flash.
Exactly.
And that can be with anyone. It can be categorized under race. How do you view a race? How does other people it can be out of anything, and I think that's amazing that they do it. Yeah, I just think you're 100% right on that.
Let's talk about the advocates. We were mentioning that.
Yes.
Before we started. Everybody seems to want an advocate.
Everyone's an advocate. Why do I believe that? Why? Because obviously they want to be heard. But I think through that is the disconnect of, your story, telling it to me, and then me telling your story. I'm going to pull different things. I'm going to advocate to you to focus on different parts. And that's where I feel we start to lose the truth or the genuine, because everyone has other intentions. And even at the ending scene, when Barb is sitting down with someone who's willing to help her advocate for her son and for her, and who knows what this lady's intentions are? Who knows if she has her own point that she wants to bring forwards? But we see even in a flashback, when I'll get to predictions, as to someone coming to the jail and talking to Carlo, what's his name? Carter. She's talking to Carter and bringing up something, and she's telling his story to him. All this advocating loses the genuine. And I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Is it good? Is it helpful? Is it hurtful? What do you think?
I think that I'm not sure that it's helpful or hurtful. I think it adds weight to this case. Do we know the name of the woman we see in the last scene?
No.
Okay, so whoever that is, whoever Barb goes to talk things out with at the end of this episode, I think is going to play an important role.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's going to help or hurt Barb, but I think it's going to add a whole new dimension.
Yeah.
Someone who's not directly involved in this case having a say.
Well, no one's advocating for Aubrey yet. Have we seen one?
For Aubrey?
Yeah.
Seems like she's pretty alone.
She's pretty alone. Maybe that new mystery phone call character will step in and, help her out.
Whether it's her uncle or whoever that is.
But I mean, I haven't seen anyone step up for her. But yeah, we have like Tony's father. He has him, and
I mean, wiring her thousands of dollars is in a way helping. She blew it all on a hotel room, which I thought was bizarre, like a penthouse suite.
Yeah, we were very confused by that.
Are you guys surprised? So this is something you said triggered this thought.
Yes.
So right now you said we don't know how she sees it. We don't know what her intentions are, how it's going to pan out. Right now, we only see the views of those involved for the majority.
Yeah.
I'm excited and/or interested to see when this transitions to public knowledge and where the public is going to go and how different their cumulative view will be on this overall situation.
That's a really good point.
That is a good point, and I wonder if it will get public, because we talked last week about how we see these crime shows where it is public. It's, the reporters swoop in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see some reporters here, but we're not seeing the newspapers or we're not seeing, the news reports. We're seeing the very personal.
Right.
And that's I think that's what we sort of like about the show, but I wonder if it will zoom out into the more public realm.
We see a lot of advocates, and I think they're going to be the ones that bring it to the press.
Yeah.
I think that's their job. I think also the press going and interviewing, I think it's just a matter of time.
And it'll be interesting how the show portrays that.
And things
given
are going to get
press
skewed.
Now.
Think about how messed up this is. This is going to have a whole nother element of he said, she said.
So, okay, we have to talk about the last scene with Barb and what she says and how she frames it. She's talking to this woman, which I don't know if she has a name yet or not in the show, and she breaks it down to her and she said, I'm going to say something and I don't care how you're going to take it, I need to say it. And she said, okay, if 3 white people walk into a house and murder a black person, then it's a hate crime.
Yes.
And they have and there's tons of people advocating against them. But if vice versa, the same situations happen, what is the case then? What happens then? It's not a hate crime, it would never happen.
And the mystery woman said, no, that's not true. Like, it still can be a hate crime.
It still can, and it certainly can. I mean, I'm not looking at any sort of rule book or book of laws here, but I do believe that a hate crime can be committed against anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
White, black, gay, straight, anyone.
Yes.
I do think that Barb is incorrect in her opinion on what a hate crime is, because it could be because your son was white. That might be the case. But
do you think that's what she's saying, though? Like, is that where she was coming from?
Well, I think she's jumping to a conclusion
that it was a hate crime.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. She's saying, no one will believe me, no one will take that side of the story, or no one will accept that side of the story.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that was at the end of the episode, and I don't think that's the last we're going to hear about that.
Oh, no. I think that's exactly what's going to tumble into next episode.
Yeah.
Anything else about advocates or maybe how this is going to turn into a group or a mass media story? I
mean, I feel like the idea of stereotypes has just, I know we briefly mentioned that, but just keeps coming up, and there's stereotypes about, interactions and racial stereotypes, and it's become very prevalent. So I definitely see that as like a reoccurring theme, and I don't know where they're going to go with that necessarily, but I do see that.
That brings us sort of to our next point. That's a great transition. The idea of stereotypes and breaking stereotypes. Yeah. I mentioned earlier that Alonzo, we all talked about how Alonzo doesn't like to be just another, Mexican. Mm-hmm. That's not good enough for him. His daughter thinks he wants to be whiter. We have the interracial couple who wants to be the ideal interracial couple, the ones you see on cereal boxes or in magazines. And we talk about how Barb doesn't, a bunch of racially loaded things Barb has said.
Oh, absolutely.
And they all are trying to break barriers and stereotypes. Another stereotype I can think of is how Barb wanted to get out of that government-funded housing, and she has a slew of ideas of what government-funded housing means. She doesn't want anyone to know she was there.
Yeah. Wait, I actually missed that. When did she talk about that?
In the first episode, she talked about that, and she doesn't want the bodies to be buried in Oakland because she doesn't want to remember that time in her life. I mean, she is embarrassed about a place she spent a long period of her time.
Absolutely.
She wants to be the polished privileged white
perfect
woman.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree, and that's a stereotype right there.
Exactly.
You know,
goes both ways.
I think. What do you guys think about? So yes, I think in their minds and in their words, a lot of them say they want to break stereotype, but I think in their actions.
Falling right into him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, how ironic is it that Alonzo does all this work so that his kids are these
Stay out of trouble, basically.
Yeah, stand-up citizens, and his son is being charged for murder. Like, oh.
Yeah. The irony.
Oh, it didn't work, Alonzo.
No,
Sorry, it did not work. Yeah, they're all falling right into these stereotypes. Yeah. For every point they get for breaking a stereotype, they get another point for falling into the trap of that stereotype. There's been a lot of comparisons made between this show and the movie Crash, which won Best Picture in 2004, I
saw
think.
that in the comment roll.
A lot of people love Crash. I have some issues with Crash. In fact, I think American Crime deals with race in a more sophisticated way than Crash.
I would agree with you.
In that we have more subtext in American Crime, whereas it was sort of blatant and sort of smack you in the face, in my opinion, in Crash. But I think they deal with something in a similar way in that they both... no race or no group of people looks like heroes, and no group of people or race look like villains.
Yeah.
It's all a gray area.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way that I think that we need to continue to look at people, it's not like your race, it's not your sexuality, people all make good and bad decisions, and it's based on character.
Yeah.
And I think that's like an interesting role and an important role maybe to look at this show, like even just take race out of it. We just need to look at the character and like who's doing what, do even some of the main characters have, I mean, are their intentions good or intentions bad? I think it's important to look at that as well.
I would agree with you. Actually, I don't know if you guys saw the video that recently went viral. It was a video of, I just wrote a full article about it. It was a video about it happened in Santa Monica, and the two people would stand behind a screen and they just showed their skeletons, and that's all the other people could see, and like whether they were hugging or just being friends or anything, and then they step out from behind, and you then see these surface things that we all look at first. But when they're behind the screen, whether it was two girls hugging and two girlfriends kissing, whatever, there's no judgment because it's two skeletons and it's fine. And then they step out and suddenly people have different remarks, and I think it proved that in the end of the day, we all can agree that we are all equal, we are all human, and we can appreciate it. But why is it so hard why is it so hard for some people, all of us, whatever it is, when it's not that easily stripped away?
Yes. Yeah. That's really interesting.
If you guys, I have the video. If you want to see it, it's on it's bicoastalplus.com, and I have the video, and you can check it out. It's an amazing video. I think you should see it.
Great. We'll tweet that out. Yeah. You guys, this is a great discussion. There's a lot more to be talked about. For now, do you guys want to get into predictions?
Let's do predictions.
All right, here we go.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV
predictions. I love saying that.
When you do it again.
Predictions. I think I might have to re-record
that. That was really good. Yeah,
they should hire you.
You're the new voice.
All right, so predictions.
I have a strong one.
Go ahead.
I think next episode we're going to see the public's opinion. This is going to leak out to the public. I think through everyone having an advocate and a voice and a way to speak louder, we're going to start seeing the public's opinion. I'm excited to see it and see what they define, where they define the line.
Yeah, how they portray it, through the show.
I think things are going to explode once that happens. I agree. I think you're right. It is going to turn to the public realm, and we're going to see the public's opinion. And I think that stereotypes and racist remarks are just going to go through the roof.
They are. I think that eventually, maybe not next episode, but Gwen is going to wake up. And I think there's going to be some questions there. Maybe she won't remember everything because she's had a...
That's a big key. I'm excited to actually...
Because they're still focusing on her a lot.
That's a fun little piece of the puzzle to hold back until we are not expecting it.
You guys, we have so much more to talk about, and that's great for us because we will be back next week. Once again, my name's Jon Manganello. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Johnny Mangs.
And I am Lindsay Douglas. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Doug Ventures.
And I am Nicholas Grava. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Nicholas Grava. We'll see you guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
There's so much to talk about.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.